Greetings, ladies and mentalgets, and welcome to this latest episode of Tales from Outer Space, where I take a space-related story from around the internet and read it out loud for your enjoyment. All the relevant links are down below. Please don't forget to do the usual YouTube gumph, because if you don't, the nanite swarms will steal your other sock. But more importantly, as always, I hope that you enjoy. I'd quickly like to thank the following Tier 5 patrons and channel members for supporting the channel: Datamagnet and Bob the Dragon. Thank you very much. Guardian Angels, written by Digital332006. The Dr. Iron traveled to its predetermined path at great speed. A little less than 5 years remained until it reached its destination, the potential colony world of Noma. Initial surveys were quite hopeful, and a mission was authorized, sending a single occupant to perform additional tests and establish an initial outpost should it be acceptable. The Dr. Ion's computers picked up something odd, a debris field not supposed to be there. Unable to properly adjust its trajectory, it defaulted to its emergency subroutine. The cryogenic capsule that housed the single living occupant of the spacecraft hiffed and started thawing its occupant. Coughing and disoriented, Lagant made his way out, his appendages grabbing at everything nearby to prevent him falling down. By now, sirens were blasting loudly and the ship's propulsion had stopped, but was still heading in the debris. Lagant managed to excruciatingly make his way to the center console, trying to understand what was going on, but was still in a semi-dazed state. He operated the console, bringing up a display that showed the unforeseen debris field. Quickly, he tried to import a new course, but felt his mind become hazy. An intense migraine paralyzing him, likely due to the combination of stress and not using the proper amount of time to rehabilitate himself after cryogenic sleep. Grabbing his head with his 4 tentacles, he slumped backwards and lost consciousness, leaving the ship at the mercy of space. An unknown amount of time later, he awoke and raised himself from the cold floor of the spaceship. Confused and disoriented, Lagant sat down in the command chair until it all abruptly came back to him. He rushed to the computer and opened up the outside display, but there was no debris in sight. Going into his ship's logs, he checked for a time that he was awakened, finding out that it was some 13 hours ago. Curious, he delved deeper to see what course corrections the ship made while he was unconscious, but found none. Instead, a single entry was present, and it appeared as if he had made the proper corrections himself. He scratched his head as he distinctly remembered not being able to do it in time. "Computer, who entered these new coordinates?" he asked out loud. "Unknown origin," came back the digital reply. "Is there anyone else on board, computer?" "There is a single life sign on the Dr. Iron." "Perhaps it was a system glitch then." "Were there any unusual energy readings or software glitches in the hour following my awakening?" "Affirmative. Unknown energy signal occurred at 1754 and lasted for 22 seconds. Finding the entry time, Lagant played back the onboard footage recorded during that time. As he predicted, by then he was laying down on the ground and not moving. Squinting, he could see the computer's display change to a screen used for entering coordinates and see numbers being inputted. Someone, or something, had used the computer while he was knocked out. They had altered the ship's course to prevent the collision. Did he have some kind of alien hitchhiker getting a ride at his ship? The system had found no other life forms, though. The sane play would be to forget this had happened and go on with his life. But about him, curiosity ended up getting the upper hand, and he set a plan in motion. This thing was smart enough to know how to operate a ship and knew how to hide itself. It would have to lure it into a false sense of security. With that in mind, he tried to act as normal as possible. "All right, that was weird. Okay, how long until we arrive, computer?" 3 years, 8 months, and 11 days until we reach the orbit of Noma." He blinked rapidly in disbelief. "But what? Please verify that information and compare it to the previous course. Calculating. New course is 18.7% more efficient than previous path. But how? Gravity on the objects on new course have been used to accelerate the Doxa ion. This increase in speed over the course of 3 years will amount to an estimated 7 months of travel time. 7 months was a good amount of time saved, but not nearly 19% of a 5-year journey that was left. What about the other 5 months? Unknown query. The splitting migraine was starting to come back, but Lagant would not be deterred. He manually added up all the information and calculated it from scratch. Then, using the old information, reversed from there. The maximum speed of 0.72 C that the Doxa ion was capable of was now 0.81. As preposterous as it sounded to him, it seemed that the entity had altered the ship itself. Was it using the Doxa ion to get somewhere and wanted to reach its destination faster? Was it simply benevolent? All Lagant knew for sure is that it had done all of this in the span of 22 seconds. Lagant closed the computer terminal and went to lay down, hoping a good sleep would let him come up with something. Sleep had been a good advisor, and 5 hours later, Lagant woke up with an idea. It was certainly plausible that the entity had no physical body. Clearly, this might be a different kind of life form, but energy can be contained. If he could find a way to trap it, at least until he understood it more in order to make a decision about what to do with the creature. The next part was necessary to prevent it from escaping. Making his way to the computer console, he sat down and readied the settings that he'd need for the second part of his plan. Computer, erect a containment field around the ship. Assume a level 4 breach. The ship was soon enveloped in a field meant to prevent air escaping into empty space. As the field itself was energy-based, it was likely to react with whatever organism might be present. Having prepared the field settings beforehand to ignore his body's organic material, he braced for the odd tingling sensation that occurred when the field crossed a living being. Entering some commands into the computer, Lagant worked fast and made the field retract past him and go deeper into the ship, with the field from the other end of the ship also coming this way. For a brief moment, the field sparked and he could see the undefined shape take form, but vanish quickly afterwards. He kept the field to a small rectangle-like shape and froze it there. Getting up, he looked at the small inside area of the field, but found nothing. Time passed and the creature seemed to not react. Perhaps biding his time. Frustrated, he began talking to the empty space. "I know you're there. Show yourself." Still, the creature did not show itself. Thinking that he was going mad, he tried performing tests and scans, but to no avail. For 3 days, he kept the field up and made no progress. Just as he was about to give up, he decided to try talking to it once more. "You know, the ship's batteries will hold and I can keep this up for the whole trip." Some kind of blue clouds became visible from within the field and began moving around the narrow area of the field. As he began to wonder how to communicate with it, the clouds stretched and formed the letters to create words. Recording everything, Lagant started transcribing the letters. "Need more room." Did it truly need more room, or was it perhaps looking for an opportunity to break through the field? He needed more information. "I can't do that just yet. I need to know that I can trust you. Who are you and what do you want?" The cloud's color changed from blue to green and red before settling on blue. Letters started appearing again. Then he took note. "Traveler, explore, harmless." "You say that, but you were able to use the ship's computers. I don't know anything about you or your kind." The cloud began writing again. "True form, need room. How much?" The cloud proceeded to give out measurements. It was not much more, perhaps 70% more of the area than it had now. "All right, but I'm setting a 5-minute self-destruct. I'll postpone it as long as nothing happens to me." Lagant went back to his console and set the self-destruct before adjusting the size of the field. The cloud started taking more space in the area inside the field, and then something shone brightly. A powerful light emanating from inside blinded Lagant to what was happening, but it lasted only a brief moment. Now instead of a cloud, a bipedal creature stood upright inside the field's influence. It was slightly taller than him, but had many fewer limbs. However, it had a regal bearing from the way the two large grey wings extended from its back. They seemed forcefully retracted, almost painfully so, by the field. It was impossible to determine the creature's gender at a glance, assuming it even had one. "Thank you," the creature said, the words coming out of its mouth. This sudden change had Lagant asking himself some questions he had long forgotten about. "Are you one of the 8 deities?" The self-destruct countdown continued in the background as the strange winged creature blinked a few times before replying. "Oh no, that's a common misconception. We simply exist on another plane of existence, free from the physical shackles. I am no more of a god than you are to most other life forms." Every piece of information the creature provided only prompted more questions. "Who is we?" "My species refers to ourselves as humans. We have no specific form, at least not since the Ascension. I chose this one because it felt appropriate, given what I do." "And what is it that you do? Have you been spying on me, our whole species?" "It's not exactly like that, but, well, many of us act as guardian angels. We go through life with other sapient creatures and try to help out." "That's what you did with the console. You altered the course while I was unconscious. But why?" "That's a complicated question. It would take a while to explain. Could you perhaps stop that self-destruct? I wouldn't want to be interrupted." Still skeptical, Lagant adjusted the self-destruct to 15 minutes instead. "That's the best I can do." The winged creature sighed. "All right, well, we used to be physically bound to a body like you are. However, we eventually discovered a way to exist as energy. This opened up many paths for us to follow. I'm rather old, you see, and I've done plenty of things. Everything I ever wanted, actually. And by having had this amazing life, I want to give back, to let others also be able to experience rich and fulfilling lives." Taking a breath, he continued. "By being there and guiding someone else through life, helping wherever I can, I am able to see that come to fruition. A long, long time ago, you see, we created mythology about creatures called angels. There are many versions and accounts, but the one I draw inspiration from is the better aspects. The ones that talk of angels guiding lost travelers or helping the injured. This inspired many stories, legends, and became culturally relevant. Suffice to say, this is what I aspire to be." The winged creature continued on for some time, talking about angels in history and myths. Some minutes later, the history talk stopped, giving Lagant time to add in a question. "So you'll be there until I die?" "Well, that was originally the plan. However, this would have all been done without your knowing. This changes everything, unfortunately. I can't be a guardian angel of someone who is aware he has one." "Why not? Is there some kind of rule that you must follow?" "This would change the choices you make and the decisions you choose. Every human is free to follow their own ethics, and these are mine. Now, if you'd please release me, I shall be on my way." Lagant pondered about it for a few moments. He could keep the human in captivity, bringing it back as proof to his homeworld. What would be the repercussions, however? On the other hand, if he let it be free, what proof would remain? Perhaps it would be best if this incident never occurred, given the good nature of the creatures and the services that they provided. With some reluctance, Lagant turned off the field. Turning back around, the human had already disappeared out of sight and likely back into his formless shape. Making final checks to be sure that everything was in order, he returned to his cryogenic station in order to resume the trip. The human, his guardian angel, would remain on his mind for some years, even though the busy work of preparing Noma for colonization would be at the front of his thoughts. A few coincidences would make him think back to that fateful encounter. Had he tripped by accident right before the rocks at the top of that cliff had started to fall and crash not more than 2 meters away from him? Or what about that time he couldn't find the keys to the rover, but upon opening it manually to start it, found the 3 broken bolts around the engine bay? He would likely never know, but smiled gratefully anyways. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.